one of the many problems nga ginasight sa mga mentees, no, newly elected officials was the competence of key personnel, plus of course ang trustworthiness, and then ang fear that ang nabilin nga mga key officials are loyal to the previous one, especially kung namutong napirde, and therefore they worry about, basi masabotahe. So they try to either replace or to put somebody above the problem officials.
Although I stand corrected, Gov, i-interject ko lang. There is actually institutional memory when it comes to corruption. No? Corruption is so entrenched sa agencies that even if you change the head, amounts to nothing.
Yeah, that's true. Amo pa na isa ka problema nga tubangon sa bag-o nga presidente. You like the incumbent president, you can say that you are going to stop corruption, you hate corruption, etc. Just because the president says nga mauntat does not mean nga mauntat. That's a reality. Yeah, I agree. So na-entrench ang system of corruption. How do you solve that? So, personally, kung ako maglantaw, naluoy ko sa dason nga presidente. Because of all the many problems that need to be fixed and all the reforms that need to be put in place. Mayo man na nga ang presidente, one term lang, no? 6 years. So, for example, kung anyone, it can be anyone, VP Leni, Sara Duterte, Pacquiao, or whoever, kung magsulod sa ulo sa isang bago nga presidente nga, I only have 6 years. I am not running for re-election. Okay? So my job is to fix up government and move us forward. So kinahanglan klaro ang iya agenda. Kahapos magsiling, amunin kilalantay moon, but ang unod, ang nitty-gritty. So there are many things that need to be put in place. So you need a team. Ang imo nga team, you put cabinet secretaries, you put bureau heads, etc., presidential appointees with very specific instructions. Define your agenda, your agency's agenda, what we need to accomplish, and then give yourselves a clear time frame. Decide what you need to do, what kind of resources you need, etc., and then work with the bureaucracy to get all of this done. But then again, as you said, damo na da sa bureaucracy who are used to corruption. So every one of those leaders will have to have an anti-corruption, anong tawag mo naman? An anti-corruption unit, whose only job will be to make the bureaucracy know that someone is watching.
Or perhaps ang citizens themselves could volunteer for that.
Ang?
Citizens.
Pwede, no? Watchdogs.
Watchdogs.
For example, if you become a head of any of those departments, DPWH particularly, singano mo tanan nga regional directors and all your ano tawag sila ni mga DPWH
district
engineers, every one of these units must have a citizens watchdog in place. And it is not enough nga mangita ka lang sang volunteers, because sa Kwanla, sa Bids and Awards Committee,
may representatives na.
May representative na. Damo. But we had a very interesting discussion many years ago, if I'm not mistaken, sa Guimaras. No? Ano ang problema sang Bids and Awards nga system when it comes to bidding out infrastructure, where a lot of the corruption happens? Kaya siling namon, may haraman da sang citizens watchdogs. So, ginaistorya na mo ng mga citizens representatives ang PICPA, sino pa ganing pungko da, essentially pick
Social Action Center.
Oo, mga, ang
Supposedly, media may ara.
Mangkot namon, how effective are you in guarding against corruption? Sila, the problem is, volunteers man lang kami. If we want to really guard against corruption, we have to do it full-time.
There you go.
Di ba? So, hindi man sila kabaton sweldo or allowance from the government that they're guarding or watching. So, kung di man silang kati, dapat halin sa private sector, mabugat man, sing ganun mong tao, itaya mo lawas mo da, bantayan mong corruption, tapos ikaw pa magasto, though medyo it's expecting too much. So, I think a citizens watch system would have to be funded by national government through a system that guarantees nga, if you're a member of the Citizens Watch, sa DPWH for example, you know that what you're getting as compensation para nga maka-function ka full-time is coming from the people's money, taxes, dito sa babaw. It's not DPWH, it's not the local government that's paying you, it's dito sa babaw ng office to whom you will be accountable.
Or should there be an organization nga gaan trust funds ng gobyerno?
Yes.
And then, I mean,
Di kanugon mo, di may ara kita graft watch, may ara kita sang...
But it was good when Patricio Tan was alive.
Precisely, no? And that was all voluntary. I saw how they worked. I saw the frustrations. Ang kwan, Jules, I think the secret to solving corruption is preventing it.
Preventing.
Once natabo na ang corruption, you know how difficult it is to pin down the guilty. We see that all the time. Masiling ang tao, daw kaklaro na gid nga daw nangawat man to siya. Pero 10 years later, mabatian mo na lang sa balita nga gin-absolve na siya sang Sandigan Bayan. Diba? Kung natabo na ang corruption, it's very, consider yourself, your effort as a failure. Ang sekreto is to prevent it from happening, which means that's why ang watchdog kinahanglan nara.
But perhaps
to make sure nga hindi matabo.
Ang isa pa gid is, how do we understand corruption, no? Graft and corruption, because with the advent of social media subong, I think may kinahanglan diligence man da mo. Example, ang corruption is a legal construct. Makahambal ko nga, ay na siya corrupt. But legally, imo na yung paglantang nga corrupt ang isa ka butang. Now, how should you understand? Kiti, di naman ko kakadto sa mga watchdogs ni bala. Sometimes ang corruption, o let's say bidding, it does not start sa pagtatubangan nyo sa lamesa mo. Ang mga tao nga ara, it starts before.
Pag-obras ang program of work.
Specifications.
Correct.
Sa specs pa lang daan, mambalto ang manugbid. Siya, amuning specs ko, isulod sa bid mo. Hindi may winning edge ka na.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're correct. Dapat i-define properly ang corruption. No? Honestly, I haven't gone to that extent nga i-define mo gid abi, no? But I guess any act that results in anong tawag sini, in someone gaining a dishonest advantage or gain, no? Like for example, ang rigged bidding, gin-design mo ang program of work to meet the specifications nga isa lang ang ka-bidder ang makamit. Okay? So you're giving this particular bidder ano tawag mo na, an undue advantage, no? Which results in a disadvantage for others and for the public. No? So that's corruption. Ang iba naman niya, gasiling, well, like for example, you, contractor ka, you bid for 100 million peso road construction project. If everything were on the level, let's say, makaganansya kada, I don't know what the margins are for contractors. Let's say, may ara ka margin of profit of butang mo 15%. No? So from a 100 million peso project, you project yourself to make about 15 million. Okay? If everything were on the level. But then, ang system naton forces you to, anong tawag mo na?
SOP.
Sa SOP. So, for the boys, may ara gid perme, no? So, you set aside from your 15%, you set aside this percent for so-and-so engineer, this percent for the boys, this percent for the top, etc.
But that is accepted as cost of doing business.
Amo gani. Now, ang question, is that corruption? Okay? So, for example, tigin ko ako man lang ni sa akon ganansya. Kaginhatag, out of kabubuton.
Kabubuton.
Hindi wala. So, ginbuhinan mo ang imo nga ganansya para ma-happy man tong iban. Okay. Amo nang rasyonal pero may batian mo ginkuha man lang sa ganansya kag ginhatag out of gratitude. Okay.
Because ang concept, ang corruption is a victimless crime Wala sa may masakitan.
Kay way takabalo.
Kay wala takabalo.
There's always a victim. No? The victim could be your competitor. The victim could be the supplier of materials. Kay iti masiling ka, dali lang. 15% tani akon ganansya, purti kadamo sa akon SOP, mabilin sa akon 5% na lang. Paano ko ni mapadako-dako man? So, may nalantaw ka to karon sa imong materials, substandard. So, imbis nga 100 pesos per cubic, ang imo to yakwaon, something which is less, whatever, mahimo siya, 50 lang yan. No? So, pasudlan mo sang substandard materials, so sinong victim da? The public. Di ba?
And the public does not understand sometimes. Nga, halimbawa, kung ang isa ka kontraktor nagbuhin sang iya ganansya, bawion niya na sa material. Halimbawa, imbis 9 mm nga kabilyada, butangan niya limay.
Yeah.
O hindi ganin ba, si kawayan lang ibutang niya da.
Yeah, okay. So, that's why, ang ina nga system, it allows for corruption or it breeds corruption. Eventually, dira ginamagtupa.
Okay, the question is, isn't it also our failure as a people? Because for businessmen, it's accepted Kung ako negosyante, hindi ko yung mag-deal sa imo. Kasuhan ta ka. Which is, I don't know kung may contractor na nga nag-file sa gobyerno.
Why?
Wala, no?
Nahadlok man madulaan negosyo mo. Or some will say, hindi na ko yung mag-deal sa gobyerno, hindi ko kasaho.
Ang iban gani nga kontraktor, nagakwa pa model Kalins Manila, di ba? Anyway, hindi na ko magpalawod
Yeah. So, dapat may mabantay sina. That's why, mo nang siling ko a citizen's graft watch that is properly supported kag mabantayan niya ang proseso from the very start.
Kaka-intindi.
Nga ka-intindi. No? Ang basic mission is prevent corruption.
Prevent. Kaya dumdum ko sa una, sa time ni Cory, when the ombudsman was formed, may specific na mga CPUs Corruption Prevention Units. One of them was Dr. Pat Tan's Graft Watch, no?
Yeah.
It was an accredited CPU, but through the years, daw nadula
Anong ginaubra sa Graft Watch anay? Ginabaton ang complaints. Kag gina-investigar. As I said, once dira ka matupa, consider yourself a failure. Natabo na ginareklamo na lang. And then budlayan ka man lagas because you know the legal system.
Do paras na sa krimen, so kung siya, okay lang na kay may CCTV, but then that's after the crime.
Correct. So, ara gid yang challenge sa prevention.
Prevention.
And when your attitude changes, you ask yourself, how do you prevent corruption, then galain ang approach mo. Of course, it could be medyo masabad, it can be more challenging, but as I said, you need to enjoin the civil society to get involved, but you need to support them to become more effective.